They ask you for like 700 documents because of money laundering when you open a trading account. Right? They're not just like, hey, have at it, brother. Right? Come on now. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a brand new episode of Brain Blaze. As always, hello there. I'm your host, Simon Webster. One of my writers in this case, Danny, writes me a script, The Funniest Time Travel Conspiracies. I've never read this before. We're going to read it together. It's all conspiracies. Just time travel isn't real. I mean, time travel is real. Forward in time at 1 second per second. Let's jump into it. Do you ever get the feeling that you're never entirely alone? I do. No, I'm alone right now. I am in my office. There is nobody here.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
That's partly because the Lord is my shepherd who leadeth me beside the still waters and maketh me lie down in green pastures. Holy shit, okay. Didn't realize Danny was so religious. Kumbaya, my Lord. Oh, wait. I recorded another video before this where this was like a big thing, a big recurring theme throughout the video, and I realized we just started a new video where that joke won't make any sense. So, or maybe you wait for weeks. It depends on what order these are edited in, but there was a video where I was singing Kumbaya for some reason. Look forward to that one. Or maybe you watched it already, in which case brilliant. That's what they taught me in school anyway, and they were right about trigonometry. But I also sometimes get a weird feeling that every second of my life is being monitored by a potentially very large invisible audience. There's a theory that we might get well around to developing time travel one day, but not in the way that it usually gets depicted. The world would get confusing very quickly if everyone from the future suddenly started hopping back in time to accidentally tread on butterflies and murder their own grandfathers.
Okay, here we go. Time travel test number 1.
Yeah, there is the idea that we'll be able to look back in time using some sort of machine. We won't be able to interact with it, but we'll be able to view it. So maybe you're watching this from the future right now. I mean, not the recording, but me in my office making this recording, in which case, hello, strangers. It's kind of f***ing creepy, isn't it? Oh, God, that is creepy. I get that creepy feeling of being watched now. Oh, my God. Am I going to now become paranoid about this? Danny, is this my descent? But one theory suggests that whilst it would be impossible to interact with events from history and muddle up the timeline, it might still be possible for time travelers from the future to venture back as silent, unseen observers who study our primitive and barbaric ways. That's something to consider the next time you're having a private moment. No one's coming back to watch me take a massive old Danny. Now, let me interrupt today's video today about a brand new sponsor, Squarespace. Obviously, I'm just joking. Squarespace has been one of the longest supporters of this show, and I love you, Squarespace, for it. Thank you. Thank you. And apparently, also everybody watching loves you as well, because you keep sponsoring me for years, many times a month. And I love it. What a beautiful circle of capitalism this is. Now, you might be wondering, Simon, I've got no idea what Squarespace is. I've never heard you talk about it before. In fact, I've never heard any YouTuber talk about Squarespace before. Well, if that's the case, welcome to YouTube, friend. You're here for the first time, I see. Squarespace is an all-in-one website building platform for building your brand and growing your business online. With Squarespace, you can stand out and succeed online with ease. And it really is with ease. It's got a drag-and-drop builder that they call Fluid Engine. This next-generation website design system, Fluid Engine, from Squarespace allows you to unlock all of your creativity with Fluid Engine. It does sound good, doesn't it? Fluid Engine. Start with a best-in-class website template and customize every design detail with their reimagined Fluid Engine. Whether you're on a desktop or mobile, the possibilities are endless with Fluid Engine. Fluid Engine. Sorry, I'm off the... I've had way too much coffee today. I'm sorry, Squarespace. Another great feature is their analytics. With this, you gain insight into the source of your website visits and sales, analyze the most effective channels, and improve your website based on top keywords or popular products. Brilliant. Just like Fluid Engine. And let's not forget about Squarespace's email campaigns. With this powerful tool, you can drive sales and engage your audience through regular email updates, collect email subscribers on your site, and send welcome emails, announce sales, or even offer exclusive discounts. Look, I built my website with Squarespace. I did it before Fluid Engine, and it was still ridiculously easy, so I can't imagine how even more ridiculously easy it is now with Fluid Engine. And most importantly, start building your website through my link below, because that shows Squarespace just how much you guys love Squarespace. Now, fundamentally important it is that they keep sponsoring this show. Okay? Head to squarespace.com/blaze for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use the promo code BLAZE at checkout to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. And now back to today's video. Fluid Engine! You might be tempted to dismiss such an absurd idea on the grounds that time travel will always be impossible in any direction, but allow me to present you with compelling evidence which suggests otherwise, including a mysterious discovery in a Chinese tomb, why Greta Thunberg and Elon Musk are sailing through eternity, and the shifty stock trader with a mind-bending confession as to how he made his millions. Okay, Okay, let's go. The shifty star. How did you make your millions? It definitely wasn't insider trading. I'm a time traveler. Reasonable doubt, anybody? Please? Please? Time traveler? It's not insider information. Fatal time jump. The problem with hopping into the future is that you're essentially taking a leap into the unknown and you're never quite sure what may be waiting for you around the other end of the time corridor. That was the problem for a man called Rudolph Fentz, although it seems he may have not been a time traveler by choice. Late one evening in 1951, passers-by noticed something unusual in Times Square, New York. A man dressed in 19th century clothing and sporting big funky sideburns suddenly just appeared out of nowhere, looking a little bewildered by his surroundings. He didn't have much time to get his bearings. Within seconds, he wandered into the road and got mowed down and killed by a taxi. I suppose he could have just had his own thing going on when it came to fashion sense. When the police later rifled through his pockets, they found his business cards, which identified him as Rudolph Fentz. But they also found an old copper token bearing the name of an unknown saloon, about $70 in old banknotes, and a bunch of letters dated 1876. What's more, all of these possessions looked brand new. The police were naturally keen to inform the dead man's relatives, but there was another problem. Rudolph Fentz didn't seem to exist. He wasn't in the phone book, nobody ever reported him missing, and although his business cards led the police to a real address, the current owner of the property had never heard of Rudolph. Well, I say that nobody ever reported him missing, and when the police dug a little deeper into the missing person files, they came across a Rudolph Fentz who vanished without trace in the year 1867. His description: this is such an urban legend. This is just an urban legend. It's too perfect. His description exactly matched that of the man who was killed in 1951, and his address was the same as the one listed on the dead man's business cards. So it's clear the poor old Rudolph had stumbled into a time hole in 1876 and had been tragically unprepared for the dangerous 1951 world of TV dinners and jukeboxes and, most significantly, big yellow taxis. It may be forgiven for thinking that all of this just sounds like the plot of a science fiction story, and there's good reason for that. Let me guess. It's a science fiction story. The tale of Rudolph Fentz has often been reported as factual in newspapers and journals over the last 70 years. Sounds like newspapers and journals not doing their due diligence. Surely you'd read a story like that and be like, well, that's obviously nonsense. Let me try and see if there's any evidence to it. And then you Google it and you find out it's a fucking TV show. It's like an episode of The Outer Limits or The Twilight Zone or some shit. Could be Black Mirror, couldn't it, nowadays? One of the earliest known accounts of the story appears in a 1953 booklet written by Ralph Holland, who suggested that the story was further proof of secret, sinister forces at work in the fourth dimension. But in fact, Ralph had just completely ripped off the idea wholesale from a fictional short story published a year earlier, a tale called I'm Scared, written by Jack Finney, which first appeared in the anthology Tomorrow the Stars. Ralph had just stolen the whole story, even the name of Rudolph Fentz, without crediting the original author, and then dressed it up as a real event. What a swizz. If he had just waited one more year, he could have stolen the plot from the original author Jack Finney's next big novel, The Body Snatchers, which might have come across as slightly more plausible. Secrets of the Tomb. A group of Chinese archaeologists got a little more, or perhaps a little learn to speak, or perhaps a little less than they bargained for in 2008 during an excavation of a 400-year-old sealed tomb dating back to the Ming Dynasty era. I'm sure they wouldn't have minded too much if they'd stumbled across a few chunks of buried treasure, but what they actually found was a Swiss watch ring. One of the archaeologists was Jiang Yangyu, former curator of the Guangxi Autonomous Region Museum. He later revealed how the team had been trying to scrape away soil from a coffin when a little piece of rock became detached from the soil and hit the ground with a metallic ping. After closer examination, he realized that the little piece of rock was actually a small golden ring with an analog watch face on the front. How the did that get there? Jan explained to the press that the ring was approximately 2 millimeters thick and the hands on the clock were permanently frozen in time at 10:06 a.m. But the most curious thing about the ring was that it had the word Switzerland engraved on the back in English, indicating that it was made in the country with a rich history in crafting superior timepieces. But it's a rich history that doesn't stretch back that far. The name Switzerland didn't become officially recognized and widely used until the formation of the Swiss federal state in 1848.
It just don't add up!
So how exactly did a watch ring, probably no more than a century old at most, end up in a tomb that had been sealed for over 400 years? Well, I'm guessing it wasn't actually sealed for 400 years, or this story is entirely made up, or one of the team who was in there accidentally left it in there or hid it in there on purpose to make up a cool story. Let's find out. It could be put down to another intriguing example of OOPArt, is that how you pronounce that? OOP Arts? Out-of-place artifacts, which utterly confound our conventional historical understanding and makes us question everything we thought that we knew. Either we're not as well informed as we thought we were, or a time traveler was knocking around during the original sealing of the tomb and carelessly dropped the shiny new Swiss watch ring that he'd recently picked up from 1922. He may have done it on purpose to screw with people's minds. That's exactly the kind of thing I'd get up to if I could travel through time. Yeah, I'd definitely do that. It would be brilliant. Or perhaps it's more likely that the archaeologists were mistaken in their belief that the tomb had remained untouched for 400 years, and that the relatively recent tomb raiders had accidentally dropped their Swiss watch ring. What the f*** is a Swiss watch ring? I'm realizing I'm reading this whole thing and I don't really know what that is. I know what a Swiss watch is. I know what a ring is. Like, what? Is it a watch that's on a ring? And the relatively recent tomb raiders had accidentally dropped their Swiss watch ring when they were digging for amulets. I think that's quite likely. You'd think the tomb raiders would instead be taking treasure instead of leaving it behind, though. Another plausible theory is that the watch ring had been dropped close by within the last century and picked up by a rat that then burrowed into the tomb with its new find. Or maybe the most credible theory of all is that the story was always just complete bollocks. Although it's been regurgitated many times over the last 15 years, there never seems to have been any updates or additional information about where the ring was found and what specific tomb it was in.
So Back to the Future is a bunch of bullshit?
And the sole photograph that often accompanies these articles depicts a watch ring still covered in soil, which doesn't remotely match the description given by Jian Yang Yu. There's another big clue that the whole thing was a hoax, and some of you might have already spotted it. If the ring contained an analog watch face, which traditionally doesn't indicate AM or PM, why did Jian specifically say that the time on the watch had been frozen at 10:06 a.m.? Good. If you got that, you're a big brain. Caught on film. Greta Thunberg may have first sprung to fame when she was apparently just 15 years old, but startling photographic evidence reveals that she must now be pushing 140. Either that or she's a time traveler from the future, has been sent back into the past to try and prevent the climate catastrophe that unfolded in her own time. Yeah, naturally, that's what's happening. They chose a 15-year-old to go back and deal with that. Of course. The photograph in question was taken in 1898 by Eric A. Hegg and is part of a vast collection which captures scenes from the Northwestern Canadian Gold Rush. It actually had been available to view on the University of Washington's Special Collections Archive for years before it suddenly began generating attention in 2019, quite possibly because facial recognition software had identified one of the faces in the photograph as Greta Thunberg. It has to be said that the resemblance is uncanny. The photograph depicts 3 children operating a rocker at a gold mine on Dominion Creek in the Yukon Territory of Canada, and one of them is a dead ringer for the young Swedish activist, complete with quizzical stare and braided pigtails. She looks so much like Greta that some skeptics have insisted the photograph must surely have been tampered with, but this claim has been refuted by the University of Washington Library, which has owned this whole collection of photographs since the 1960s. It's just someone who looks like her. People look like each other. It's not that uncommon. I remember first year university, there were 2 dudes, and everyone just assumed they must be brothers because they look so similar, and they were just not related. It's just like they look really similar. I mean, not identical or anything, but it was striking resemblance. At first, I didn't entirely understand the conspiracy theory that Greta Thunberg must therefore be a time traveler from the future, as this photograph clearly shows her in the past. But apparently, the point is that while Greta originally hailed from a future ripped apart by climate change, she is now traveling through key moments in history, including 1898 and the last few years, to stop the future from ever happening. Of course, it could just be a case of 2 different people looking remarkably similar. It could? What? No, time travel's much more likely. I used to have my own doppelganger back in Rotherham, and he always used to moan that he was constantly getting randomly beaten up by strangers for things that I'd allegedly done. But Greta Thunberg is not the only celebrity figure capable of traversing the timeline. Elon Musk said it too. He apparently bears a striking resemblance to a distinguished Canadian World War I fighter pilot by the name of Raymond Collishaw, who died in 1976, just 5 years before Elon was born. Nope. Elon Musk is not 40-something. That must be 5 years after Elon was born, because he's not born in 1981. I'm not 6 years younger than Elon Musk, Danny. Give me a break. I'm not that old, Danny.
But you are!
So the theory goes that Elon is either a time traveler or a reincarnation of Raymond Collishaw. Not sure what went wrong, Danny, there, but something's not working out. I wasn't quite so convinced by this one. Yes, they do look a bit similar from certain angles, but whereas I can understand why Greta Thunberg might have been sent back in time to save the world, I'm not sure why Elon Musk would have been sent back in time to look up Twitter and challenge Mark Zuckerberg to a cage fight. Surely Elon Musk's going to get his ass beat by Mark Zuckerberg, right? Because Mark Zuckerberg's, 20 years younger than him? 15 years younger than him? He's not overweight. He does actual fighting, Elon Musk is like 50, he's fat, and I don't think he knows how to fight, does he?
I'm old enough to take a big fat shit on your face.
Elon, what are you doing? You're going to get beaten. Others have a different opinion, though, noting Elon's uncanny ability to pick out the right trends at the right time. Former Twitter chief executive Dick Costolo once remarked, Elon may be proof that time travel exists because he seems to have either more hours in the day than the rest of us have, or he's from the future. Elon himself later directly answered the conspiracy theory when he tweeted, "Full disclosure, I'm actually a 3,000-year-old vampire." It's not just celebrities who can travel through time. In recent years, a whole clutch of anachronistic photographs and archive film footage has emerged from the vaults which captured time travelers using devices that were a long, long way of being invented, and we're usually talking about a cell phone. To be honest, some of these are a bit silly. We're told that footage during the recording of a 1928 Charlie Chaplin film shows a woman holding a cell phone to her ear, whilst a 1943 photograph taken on a beach in Cornwall shows a man scrolling through his Twitter feed. It's far more likely that the woman is simply using a hearing aid, while the man is probably just rolling a cigarette. But a slightly more compelling case concerns film footage from 1938, which shows a woman leaving a factory whilst clearly talking into a device that looks like the big chunky cell phone that you might have seen a yuppie using in the 1980s. It's an odd piece of film, prompting one Twitter user to ponder, if she was the only one back then with a cell phone in 1938, who the hell was she talking to?
These nuts.
The most widely accepted explanation for this came from the YouTube user who claims the woman was his great-grandmother, Gertrude Jones, who worked at DuPont factory and was one of 6 employees who were given new experimental wireless telephones to muck about with for a week. If that's true, it still doesn't adequately explain how DuPont were apparently developing working cell phones a whole 35 years before anyone else got around to it. They could have just been making like some sort of more advanced radio. Bearing in mind the period, I just wonder if it's a bit more likely that she was talking to an unusually slim walkie-talkie. Yeah, if we could go back in time and ask her, maybe Greta Thunberg can get on that the next time she's passing through our time. Trading futures. Andrew Carlson sounds like a pretty shrewd investor to me. Back in 2003, the 44-year-old made a total investment of $800 over 126 high-risk stocks. 2 weeks later, he had a portfolio worth over $350 million. No, he didn't. Holy shit! I'd have thought that such a magnificent achievement would have generated respect and acclaim, but no, it sadly just generated suspicion. Yes, it's going to generate suspicion, my dude. Like, even if you've done it completely legitimately, the competitions or whoever the fuck it is, the FBI, SEC is going to be breathing down your neck hard, bro. The US and Securities Exchange Commission figured that there was no way that Andrew could have been so smart or so lucky to get that rich so quickly. He must surely have access to insider trading information. He was arrested shortly afterwards and given an intense 4-hour grilling as the police tried to squeeze out the names of his dodgy sources. Andrew Carlson did indeed spill the beans during this interrogation, was happy to reveal the name of his source. His source was Andrew Carlson from the year 2256. Andrew claimed that he had traveled back over 250 years in time to make a bit of money off the stock market, after calculating that 2003 would be a good place for the recovery of the previous year's massive downturn. He had initially planned to play a long, subtle game, which included several losses along the way, but the silly sausage ended up getting a bit carried away with the excitement of it all. Andrew tried to back up his claims by offering the police information on the current whereabouts of Osama bin Laden, a cure for AIDS, and the precise start date of the imminent invasion of Iraq, which turned out to be bang on. Woo! Holy shit, I like this story. This must be just made up, right? I mean, $800 into $350 over 127 trades seems a little bit impossible. However, he refused to divulge any information about his timecraft. According to a report in Yahoo News, an SEC insider expressed a few doubts over Andrew's story. He said, "We don't believe this guy. He's either a lunatic or a pathological liar. Every trade he made capitalized on unexpected business developments, which simply can't be pure luck. The only way you can pull this off is with illegal inside information. He's going to sit in a jail cell on Rikers Island until he agrees to give up his sources." No, that's not how it works. Police, you're going to have to prove that he did it. He had insider information. And he had insider information for 127 different companies? How'd you figure? How the f*** did he pull this off? Well, that last part wasn't strictly true, as a mysterious figure stumped up the $1 million bail for Andrew Carlson, after which the stock trader completely disappeared and was never heard from ever again, presumably having decided that he'd have to go back to the future. This is incredible. How have I never heard of this? It was later discovered that Andrew had never existed on paper before 2003. I'm not entirely sure if Andrew had originally intended to stay put in the year 2003 or whether he intended to take his new fortune back with him to his own time, although taking inflation into account, there's a chance that 350 million would be barely enough to buy a cinema ticket at 22.56. This maybe just sounds like a Reddit creepypasta story or some shit like that. Like, it's too unbelievable. Like, if this is actually true, it's a incredible story. And where did that 350 million go? How did he trade it if he's not a real person? Like, if he didn't exist, how's he going to open an account? They ask you for like 700 documents because of money laundering when you open a trading account. Right? They're not just like, hey, have at it, brother. Right? Come on now. But it does sound like a very long-winded and conspicuous way of generating vast wealth. Perhaps he would have been better off just buying a winning lottery ticket. Or maybe not. Another conspiracy theory suggests that lottery is nothing more than an elaborate trap designed to catch time travelers in the act. Alas, we shouldn't worry about the details too much, although the story went viral after appearing on Yahoo News and was later picked up by other outlets, including The Mirror, The Times, and The Guardian. It turns out that Yahoo News had just plucked the story from the pages of a silly satirical paper, Weekly World News, without bothering to mention this unreliable source to readers. So it was just made up. It's not so fun when it's revealed, is it? It's not so exciting. To give you a flavor of Weekly World News, they have in the past run a front page story including the headlines "Gay Aliens Found in UFO Wreck" and "Satan Captured by GIs in Iraq." Just to remove any lingering doubt, both of those stories were fake. So we can put it down to another work of pure fiction gaining traction and accidentally becoming reported as fact. Or at least, that's what the authorities want us to believe. I've got a hunch what really happened to Andrew Carson after he mysteriously disappeared. I've not found any concrete proof of it yet, but I'm still digging through the archive of newspapers from 1876 to find any reports of a man in strange clothing who suddenly appeared out of nowhere, only to immediately get run down by a horse and carriage. Just give me a little more time. And that's where we end today's video. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next time. No one's coming back to watch me take a massive old Danny.
Wow.